What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor, and in case you were wondering why my volume and my audio sound so bad, it's because I'm recording it from this right here. I'm using my phone to record this. So basically, I made my community post. The USB port on my mic broke. It's pretty much not there anymore. So I was waiting for a part for this part of the mic to get in. I came in, but it was the wrong one. So we're going to have to wait a couple more days. But because there's some stuff going on in the tropics, I figured I'd improvise, make do, record on the phone, and see how it turns out. It's probably going to sound all echoey and all that stuff, but that's the general gist of it. You won't have to worry about this for too long because we're going to be getting something done on Friday. We're going to have the new parts come in, and it should be good from there, God willing. So with that being said, I'm going to put the phone down, and it's going to sound a little bit quieter because it's a little bit further away, but let's go ahead and dive right into it. All right, so here's the situation that we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have a lot going on right now. This is now a tropical depression. We have Tropical Depression 19 rapidly organizing and potentially about to rapidly intensify in the Caribbean Sea right now as this system continues to approach Central America and then make a curve towards Florida. That is the official forecast we are seeing right now. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. At the time of me filming this is still Invest 99L. But based on some of the products I got, including what Tristan sent me right here, let's go ahead and pull that up real quickly. It is Tropical Cyclone Real Time. This is now Tropical Depression 19. You guys can see it on the screen right there. It's kind of my view's kind of blocking it a little bit, but I'll just go ahead and I didn't want to move that. Yeah, that's perfect, actually. You guys can now see it right here, Tropical Depression 19. It's been designated. It's going to be issued. The first cone's going to come out at the time of me recording this video. By the time this video comes out, it should be there. But here's what we have right now. We have a 90% probability of development so far. It's going to be a tropical depression in the next few minutes. A broad area of low pressure over the central Caribbean Sea continues to produce a large area of disorganized showers and thunderstorms. Environmental conditions are conducive for development, and a tropical depression is likely to form, well, it technically already has formed, whilst moving slowly westward into the western Caribbean Sea. Afterward, further development of this disturbance is likely as it meanders through the western Caribbean Sea over the weekend. The system is expected to turn slowly northwestward by early next week. Interests across western and northwestern Caribbean Sea should monitor the progress of the system. Regardless of the development, heavy rains are expected over Jamaica and the Cayman Islands during the next day or two. They already got hit pretty hard by Raphael, so we definitely do not need to add more problems to that. For more information, look at the high seas forecast, yada, yada, yada. 9090, this is going to be going in. This is going to be tagged as a tropical depression. A Hurricane Hunter aircraft is scheduled to investigate the system tomorrow morning. Yeah, they better get down there as soon as possible because we have a pretty big problem going on, especially this late in the season where there's still a lot of really good conditions for the system to work off of, and we're going to have to pay very, very close attention to that. But overall, taking a look at it, we're going to go ahead and do some satellite analysis real quickly. This system has been organizing at a very quick pace. We have a huge problem going on. Right here, we're seeing a lot more organized convection going on near the center of circulation. Let's go ahead and zoom in on this, give you a more mesoscale complex to this, and then we can show you the 1 minute satellite with this. But here's what we have going on. We have a lot more convection firing off, or the center of circulation is likely going to form. It's going to probably be right about here to the east of this huge burst of convection. But because this area has tightened up, the pressure gradient has tightened up quite a bit over the last 24 hours, this is going to have really no problem firing convection off on all cylinders as it continues to move slowly through the Caribbean Sea. We have a huge burst of convection firing off, and it's not this popcorn in convection. It's actually sustaining itself relatively well. Let's go ahead and go back, not the region. I want to go ahead and go back to about 90 frames to see what it's been looking like the last 15 hours. You had a burst of convection going on pretty much near the west of the system. It kind of died down a little bit. Then you had another burst that's been sustaining itself relatively well for the last 7 hours or so as this convection really started to bubble up. Starting about what's the time? Let's go ahead and zoom out real quickly and kind of get a time on when this started to blow up. Here's what we had. It started blowing up around 7 o'clock this morning. Well, not 7 o'clock, around 6 o'clock Central Time, 7 o'clock Atlantic Standard Time. and that's about 8 hours from now at the time of filming this video, 9 hours by the time you see it. So it's been kind of sustaining itself relatively well, and it's been relatively impressive to see how the system's doing, especially in mid-November. When hurricane season is usually dead, it's gone. There's no hurricanes to work with for this season anymore. It's still going, it's still trucking, and I must say I'm relatively impressed, but at the same time very concerned, because this does have, like Raphael, the possibility of impacting tens of millions of people. Jamaica's already been impacted a little bit by it with the convection, with the rain and all that stuff, albeit not nearly as great in terms of the winds as they've seen with other systems. The Cayman Islands are expected to get rain pretty soon, and then this system is expected to head towards Central America and hug the coast, and then head towards Cuba and Florida, and that's some bad news bears right there, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go ahead and show you the water vapor imagery, just to kind of give you what we're looking at. There's no dry air in sight at this current point. Where this convection has really been blowing up, where this gradient has really tightened up, there is no dry air in sight. Yes, there is a little bit of dry air in the northwestern Caribbean Sea over here, but that's easily going to get mixed out as the system continues to progress and continue to grow. It's already getting a little bit mixed out by this mesoscale convection over here off the coast of Belize and the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico. So that's not really that big of a concern for me. You're also seeing this big blob of convection that's really pushing out and pushing a lot of the dry air out of the Caribbean Sea, so we're going to have to watch it. Let's go ahead and show you the DAPIA satellite imagery right here. We're going to go ahead and pull that up. That's Invest 99L. We're going to go ahead and get the satellite, the infrared, just to kind of show you the last 60 minutes. Currently, we're seeing a system of around 25 knots, which is 30 miles per hour, and a pressure of 1,007 millibars at this current point, based on the latest update from the DAPIA website. Seizure warning, by the way, for those who are prone to flashing lights. I do apologize for that, but we are kind of suffering for this together. I do apologize. But here's what we have over the last 60 minutes. You're seeing a lot of minus 90 cloud tops really starting to bomb out and blow up near the center of this massive burst, and you're starting to see more and more convection firing off near the northern part of it and helping kind of reinforce a lot of that convective area. And that's going to be a very big sign of how this convection is going to sustain itself. And that's a very concerning sign as it heads towards Central America. And that's definitely something we are going to have to pay attention to at this current point in time. But regardless of that, let's go ahead and show you the satellite imagery with this. Let's go ahead and do that. Seizure warning, by the way, for those who have been affected by that. I do sincerely apologize. But yeah, the DAPIA website's usually not that fantastic in terms of what we have going on. So I will do my best to pause it, and that way we can just do that. Just pause that and then just get through that. But visible satellite imagery, really impressive from what I've been able to see, considering that this has just been designated a tropical depression, with winds of about 30 miles per hour at this current point. Yeah, it's about 30,007 millibars. It's going to start off as a weak tropical depression, but it's going to really take off as it heads towards the northwestern Caribbean with a lot of good conditions on the way over there. What are these conditions? Good thing you asked me. Let's go ahead and start with the sea surface temperatures right here. Global sea surface temperatures, where the system currently is at this current point, it's in an area of about 29 to 30 degrees Celsius. Still very warm waters for development. I cannot stress this enough. The Caribbean has remained relatively untapped since last year. And Raphael has finally started to tap through some of it, and now this tropical depression is going to tap through some of it as it becomes the S-named storm of the 2024 season. So we're going to have to watch that. We're going to have to pay attention to that. Where it's at right now, 29 to 30 degrees Celsius, as I've just mentioned. But then you also move into the Western Caribbean Sea, it's already technically in the Western Caribbean Sea, the Northwestern Caribbean Sea. It's in an area of about 29 degrees Celsius, so still very warm waters for tropical development. For context, for those of you living in Florida, that is 84 degrees Fahrenheit. The magic number is typically 80, but I have seen hurricanes develop in temperatures lower than that. But regardless of that, 84 degrees is what we're looking at in the Caribbean Sea, and the ocean heat content, especially over there, has been quite astronomical, especially for this time of the season. We still have areas of OHC that are untapped. Where we're at right now, off the coast of Jamaica, we're in an area of about 100 to 125 OHC. So ultimately, it's pretty good. It's pretty good OHC, and it's great OHC for rapid strengthening, and it is especially good OHC in terms of what we are looking at for November development. This is probably going to be the last hurrah. I know I said that with Raphael. I do know. I understand that. But this does look like it might be the last hurrah. I am praying it is the last hurrah so we can get hurricane season over with. It's been a grueling last 6 months. Doing all this. I mean, I enjoy covering it and all, but it's been a grueling last 6 months having to look over, see what the tropics are looking at. I want it to be quiet for the next 6 months, so that way the Caribbean can get a break. You had Beryl hit through the Windward Islands, Jamaica, the Yucatan Peninsula, and Texas. You had Debbie hit Cuba and Florida. You had Francine impact Louisiana. You had Helene impact a lot of Cuba, the Yucatan Peninsula, especially Florida and the Carolinas. North Carolina is still recovering from Helene over there. And then you had Milton, which absolutely shocked the world and became a 180 mile per hour, at least as of right now. There is going to be some reanalysis, in my opinion, of the strength of it. Probably going to reanalyze it to 185, considering where we are at right now as it was approaching the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico. Then it made landfall near Tampa Bay, destroyed the roof of Tropicana Field, which was absolutely heartbreaking to see as a baseball fan. If you're a Rays player and if you're a Rays fan, I hope you guys can get that stadium rebuilt and kind of get that stuff starting to rebuild during the off season. So I hope we can get that taken care of. But regardless, that we had Milton, and then we had Raphael, which went through Jamaica, made landfall in Cuba as a major hurricane, then it entered the Gulf as a major hurricane, weakened due to the wind shear, dry air, and water cooling off, and then dissipated in the central Caribbean Sea. So it posed no threat to land, thankfully, and we can kind of use that as a bit of a saving grace. Unfortunately, a lot of people will not be as lucky this time, especially in Florida, if the track continues. We're going to have to watch it. Let's go ahead and show you the wind shear right here. This is the wind shear as of recent. It's where this area of interest is, or this tropical depression is by the time you watch this video. It's in a pocket of very low wind shear. There's about 5-10 knots of wind shear near the center of circulation, about 15 knots a little bit away from that, then about 20 knots right over here near the western Caribbean Sea. There's about 15 knots more over here near the Honduras and Guatemala and those areas as well. There is a bit of wind shear. There's about 30 to 40 to 50 knots of wind shear in parts of the eastern Gulf of Mexico by the time the system enters it. The models do indicate that the wind shear could decrease by a bit, but I would expect slight weakening as the system enters the Gulf of Mexico and heads towards Florida. So we're going to have to pay attention to it. There is a ridge that's starting to move into the Gulf of Mexico, coupled with that kind of low area of wind shear. So that's definitely going to help lower the wind shear values over there. Just stuff we're going to have to pay attention to. Let's go ahead and pull up the shear and the moisture forecast for you guys. We'll use the GFS, but we'll also use the European just to kind of compare and contrast the two. No, actually, let's just use the European. I've been told that we can that it's been given a new upgrade recently. So let's go ahead and check this out. Let's go ahead and test it and see how it goes. So let's go ahead and pull it up right here. The wind shear forecast isn't there quite yet, so we'll have to use the 0Z. I do apologize for that. But regardless of that, here's what we're looking at. Wind shear really calms down in the northwestern Caribbean Sea as the system starts to organize and develop. There is a bit of a trough that moves into the Gulf of Mexico, but the wind shear does start to decrease and weaken. And then you have a pretty big ridge start to organize and move through, giving the Gulf of Mexico less wind shear to work with. And then as the trough starts to approach and the front starts to approach, it's going to push this tropical cyclone towards southern Florida, potentially around Port Charlotte from what the European is showing, and then out to sea and eventually dissipating from there as the trough takes through in the Gulf of Mexico. So we're going to have to pay attention to that right here. Moisture component, I know there's a very large moisture gradient between the Gulf of Mexico and Caribbean Sea initially as the system starts to organize and develop. Look at all the dry air that the Gulf of Mexico is dealing with right here. That is a lot of dry air, ladies and gentlemen, and we're going to have to watch that, especially as the system starts to move in, and it continues to get drier by the second, but then this tropical system kind of stalls out, stays in the Caribbean, stays in that moist air pocket. and then heads towards the Yucatan Peninsula. And there is a pocket of moist air. This dry air does start to decrease by quite a bit. And then there is a pocket of moist air that forms partially due to the outflow of this hurricane right here as it approaches Florida. Now, the question is, will dry air get into it while it's approaching the Gulf of Mexico? We're not 100% sure about that, but what we do know is dry air goes down, down, down as it moves through the Caribbean Sea. Wind shear goes a little down, down, down as well, but we're going to have to see what happens as it approaches Florida. It's one of those we're going to have to wait and see types of moments, and we have plenty of time to figure it out and wait for that. So we're going to go ahead and watch that, and we're going to go ahead and show you some ensemble runs with this real quickly. Here is the ensembles. Look at this. This is the European Zero C. Look at how powerful a lot of these ensemble runs are calling for. These are indicative of winds of well over 100 miles per hour sustained by the European ensembles. That is absolutely ridiculous as it moves through the Caribbean Sea. And depending on if it makes landfall or not, it'll depend on the strength. But look at all these scenarios that are in the Yucatan Strait right there. That is absolutely incredible how strong this is. And it's absolutely more incredible how it maintains its strength as it gets to Florida. That's pretty interesting, and that's a red flag for me, in my opinion. Let's go ahead and show you the GFS as well. The GFS data, we're going to go ahead and zoom into this part of the country right here, not the country, but the basin, and we're going to go ahead and move out to about 10 days out, just to kind of show you this. Yeah, GFS, still seeing a lot of these powerful scenarios over here from the 12Z, although a lot of them have it stalling out and moving inland in Honduras and Nicaragua, which would absolutely kill off the system and really weaken it pretty rapidly, but I do not see that quite happening, primarily because the steering currents are going to collapse while it's offshore. The steering currents are already pretty weak in the Caribbean Sea, and it's going to have plenty of warm water and plenty of OHC to go through before upwelling starts, but a slow-moving storm does cool the waters out quite a bit, so there is a bit of an upside with that, and hopefully those cooler waters can help get these sea surface temperatures down in the Caribbean Sea and stop the threat for hurricanes for this season. Let's go ahead and show you some hurricane runs as well. We're going to start with the H-Wharf, then move on to the H-Mon, and then the halves A and halves B. Here's the H-Wharf that we have pulled up for you right here. This is the 12Z run that we have right here. We're going to go ahead and use the 10-meter winds with this real quickly and then try to play around with a few other metrics. Here's what we have going on. This system organizes and develops, rapidly intensifies off the coast of Honduras. It kind of stagnates due to the upwelling right there and just kind of stalls out. But then as it starts to move out after about 5 days or so and heads towards the west, towards Belize and the Yucatan Peninsula, and potentially then make that turn in the very, very long term. Let's go ahead and show you the H-Mon. Right here, H-Mon's been pretty interesting, having the system organize and develop, rapidly intensifying off the coast of Honduras. Although the H-Mon is interesting, it wants the system to make landfall in Honduras and then just kind of stay just inland and then move out as a weak tropical storm and make landfall in Belize. To me, that's a bit erratic due to the collapse of the steering currents, but we'll have to wait and see how that pans out. Next one we're going to go ahead and show you is the Halves A run. Halves A has the system organizing and developing, really intensifying, although it stays just offshore, maybe makes landfall in Honduras and kind of stalls over there, and then it moves into Belize right there. It's a bit of an erratic run, I will say. These runs are very erratic, I will tell you that. Every ensemble I've looked at has been pretty erratic, so right now we don't know 100% what the track's going to be, but the general idea is it's either going to hug the coast or just make landfall in the Central America before heading towards Cuba and Florida. That's the general gist of what we're looking at right here. Here's what we have: the Halves B run, organizing, developing, really ramping up in intensity, makes landfall, hugs the coast over here in off the coast of Honduras, then heads towards Belize and Mexico right there, the Yucatan Strait. So we're going to have to watch to see how that all pans out, ladies and gentlemen. But ultimately, it's still a very erratic and very fluid situation that we're dealing with right here. This is a situation we're going to have to watch, and this is a situation that we are obviously going to have to keep you updated here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. I'm sorry if the audio is a little bit crappy. I do apologize for that. On Friday, that will get fixed, so please be patient and wait for me while I get my stuff fixed and ready to go. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and close the video out right here. I really hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. It helps us out, helps us get more people engaged with weather. If you want to come hang out with us at Storms United, ask us questions about tropics or talk tropics with us, be sure to join the Discord server. The link will be in the end screen. Also, shout out to Daniel as an official sponsor of the Pat's Path Predictor Patreon. If you want to support the channel more directly, be sure to join the official Pat's Path Predictor Patreon. It's the first link in the description down below. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.